The introduction of the Genesis, part 3, right from the beginning onwards. Isaac, the son of Abraham, has got two offsprings. They are Jacob and Esau. Even before coming into this world out of the womb, God said that the elder one will be the servant of the younger one. Prophecy says like this: I love Jacob and hate Esau. We see that God loved Jacob, whereas God refused Esau. There was a reason behind the love of God towards Jacob, because looks like a mirror. The word of the Bible portrays the personality of Esau as adulterer, useless, and a scoundrel who sold away his birthright to his brother only for the craving of food. Esau went out for hunting in the wilderness. He kept on hunting, and got tired and returned home. And when Jacob was preparing food in the kitchen, Esau asked his brother which curry he was preparing in the kitchen. Jacob replied that he was preparing some beans curry in the kitchen. Then Esau asked him to serve some food. Then Jacob answered and replied that if you give me your birthright, I will give you my food. And said, unless you give me your birthright, I cannot serve you any food. Then Esau replied, anyhow, I am going to die, therefore what shall I do with my birthright? Therefore he refused his birthright for the craving of food. In that way, Jacob has taken the birthright of Esau. And after Jacob has taken this birthright from his brother Esau, and by that time Isaac became very old, and he was dim in sight, and he was not able to see. So he wanted to bless his children before going to die. In fact, Isaac wanted to bless his elder son Esau. Therefore he called him and said, my son, I wanted to bless you, therefore you go into the wilderness and hunt some delicious food and bring it to me. And Rebekah heard Isaac speaking to Esau from behind the doors. So she called her younger son Jacob and told him, my son, I am very much disappointed at the behavior of your brother's wives, and I am so much depressed about them. So, if your father gives his blessings to your brother, I will be so much depressed because of them. So, I do not know the end of your father's time. Therefore, you go and be blessed by him, she said. Jacob raised some objections against her mother's saying. Then Rebekah was found to prepare some delicious food and took the best garments of Esau, her older son, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goat were put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. And she put the delicious food and the bread which she had prepared into the hands of her son Jacob, and sent her son Jacob to Isaac to cheat on. And Jacob went slowly to his father Isaac and asked him to bless him. But Isaac identified the voice even though he was not able to see. And he touched the hands of Jacob and tried to identify, but he was not able to identify because he was cheated on. Even though Isaac identified the voice of Jacob in the disguise of Esau, he blessed his son Jacob. In that way, Jacob has stolen the blessings of his brother Esau. Moreover, Isaac asked his son where he had obtained such a delicious food. Jacob replied that your God and my God has arranged this. So he had taken the blessings and went away. After that, his brother Esau came to Isaac and asked his father to bless him. On hearing this from his elder son, Isaac was very much stumbled. Alas, your brother came to me and has stolen away all the blessings from me. From that moment, Esau wanted to take revenge against his brother Jacob. And knowing this, their mother called Jacob and said, my son, I don't want to lose any one of you in a single day, because I know that your brother wanted to take revenge against you, for you have stolen all of his blessings from your father. And then she brought Jacob to his father Isaac and compelled him to leave that place. So that Jacob was compelled by his father to leave that place. His father Isaac told him to go to his uncle's home and marry someone and come back. And we see that Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and directed him and told him to go to the house of Bethuel, his mother's father, and marry someone else in that family. And God will multiply you and bless you fruitfully, Isaac said. And all this synopsis is found in the 28th chapter of Genesis. When Jacob started moving towards Haran, his uncle's family, he had taken some halt in the passage and he was sleeping in some particular place during that night where he dreamt a dream. God appeared to him in his dream and he saw that there was a ladder set up on the earth and the top of it reached to heaven and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac, and the land on which you lie I will give you and your offsprings. And the Lord said, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go and whatever you do. And I will bring you back to this land, and I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and was stumbled and was very much afraid because God appeared to him. And Jacob said to himself, saying, surely the Lord is in this place. This is none other than the house of God, and is the gate of heavens. And in his dream there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to the heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And this ladder is none other than our Lord Jesus Christ, who is represented over here. So the meaning is hidden that once Lord said to his disciples, saying, on the Son of Man, the angels of heaven will be descending and ascending, then what will you say? When Jacob saw the presence of God, he named that place as Bethel, and he poured some oil over that stone. The meaning of Bethel is nothing but the house of God or the temple of God. And then in the morning, Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I will come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. And as he looked, he saw a well in the field, and three flocks of sheep were lying beside it. and out of the well the flocks was watered. And generally, the stone of the well will be closed, but when the flocks gathered over there, the wells would be open and they would be watered. And after that, they would close that well with the stone. And Jacob saw them and said to them, saying, my brothers, where do you come from? They said, we are from Haran. And he asked them enthusiastically whether they knew Laban, the son of Nahor. Then they said, I know him. And he asked them how he was. And they replied, he was good, and he was well. And they said, his daughter Rahel is also accompanying us with the sheep. Jacob was very excited because he was going to meet them after a very, very long time. And by that time, Jacob has already turned 40 years old. And these people were born after 20 years of married life of their parents. And therefore, it has been 60 years since Rebekah left this place for Isaac to marry him. And again, he got into the same place. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. As soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well and watered the flock of Laban. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud, and we will understand how sentimental were they in those times. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. So we understand that this is a very good explanation of Genesis. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him in his house. And Laban said to him, surely you are my bone and flesh. And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Because it is not good for you to work freely without wages. Then they have made out an agreement between them to work for 7 years over there. Because of Jacob, God also has blessed Laban and his family. And after the completion of these 7 years of service, we understand that Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. But unfortunately, Leah's eyes were very weak, whereas Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. And it seems that Laban sent his older daughter Leah to Jacob during night. When Jacob woke up in the morning and found that it was Leah who was sent to him, and was very much disappointed about this, and asked Laban why had he done against him of this. And when this issue was brought to the notice of the elders, Laban answered them that it was not his practice to marry the younger one in advance to the older one. And he came up with a solution saying that Jacob should work over there 7 more years. Therefore, Jacob served 7 more years over there for Rachel. And during this agreement, God started giving him children. By the end of the 29th chapter of Genesis, Leah was hated by Rachel and even by Jacob. And on seeing this, God had opened her womb and gave her 4 children. And God opened the womb of Leah and gave her 4 sons, namely Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she was jealous at her sister. So she wanted to give her servant Bilhah to Jacob to bear children on her behalf. So Jacob went to her servant Bilhah and gave her two children, namely Dan and Naphtali. And in the same way, similarly, Leah also was jealous at her sister Rachel and decided to give her servant Zilpah to Jacob to bear children. So Leah had got the four children directly and two children through her servant. Therefore, her servant Zilpah had given her two sons called Gad and Asher, and now she had got six children. And still Rachel was found to be fruitless, for she had no children. Her servant got Gad and Naphtali as sons. Now the number comes to 8. And Rachel is found to ask her sister Leah of childbearing fruits. Because of that reason, Rachel sent her husband Jacob to Leah. Through this, Leah once again bore three children through her husband Jacob, namely Issachar, Zebulun, and Dinah. So listen to me carefully here, my dear friends. Six sons are direct children, and they were born to Leah. And two children were born to to Bilhah, and two sons were born to Zilpah. Therefore, the number comes up to 10 sons. And with a daughter Dinah, it becomes 11 in number. So there will be 10 sons and one daughter. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. So she conceived and bore a son, and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph. After it happens, Jacob asked his uncle Laban to send him away to his native town. So she called his wives and told this and informed about this. But in the meanwhile, they had some agreement about flocks. And Jacob asked Laban that he would pass through all his flock that day, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black lamb, and speckled and the spotted among the goats shall be his wages. So his honesty would answer for him later. And Laban responded to him positively. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock. And then Jacob took fresh sticks of almond and plane trees, peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks. And he set those peeled sticks in front of the flocks in the troughs. So the flocks bred in front of the sticks. And finally, we understand that Laban's flock became weak and Jacob's flock became strong. As a result, we see that Jacob developed into multifolds, and he was blessed with the servants and maidservants, the hundreds of and the thousands of sheep and goats, the donkeys and the flocks. And the children of Laban were murmuring about this. and that Jacob was taking away everything from their father. But then Jacob called his wives and said, I served at your father as much as I could, and I was so many times cheated on at the payment of wages, and I was not able to get the proper reward of my service. Had my God not been with me, I would have been destroyed much in advance because of your father. Just because of me, God has blessed your father, and his property is multiplied. Therefore, I don't want to stay here for any longer. Therefore, he started going back to his native town, followed by his wives, servants, and his children, and with his flocks, and with his sheep, and with his goats. But unfortunately, something wrong has happened over here. That Rachel has stolen some idols from the home of her father. Because of this, Jacob was accused of the stealing. So Laban tried to catch him on the way. As he was going to catch Jacob in the next morning, God appeared to Laban and said, don't make any discussions or arguments or disputations with my servant Jacob and go your way, God said. Anyhow, Laban met Jacob and put forth some obligations and objections, saying that he had stolen some idols from his home. Then Jacob replied, whoever has stolen it will surely be dead. If anyone steals, let him die, he said. And now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. But Laban felt all about the tent but did not find anything. And Rachel did not know that Rachel had stolen them. And there seems to be an agreement between them. And they have brought some mass of stones over there. And they took stones and made a heap. And they ate there by the heap, lest they should not come into conflict again in life among the children of Jacob and Laban. So, this is an agreement of peacemaking. And Laban called that place as Jagar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galid. So, this is the heap of witness, a witness between the two families. After that, Laban was found to return to his native home, and Jacob started moving towards his native country. So is the promise God has fulfilled in him, that he would bring him back to his native home. And in the chapter 32 of Genesis, there will be really a wonderful history. This is about meeting the angels of God in Mahanaim, and he came to know through spies that his brother Esau was chasing him in the wilderness. So he had divided all that belongs to him into groups and sent them away in advance to him, the wives, servants, and the flocks and sheep in different groups. And he was found to stay back in the valley of Ebok. And we will see that there will be a personal meeting between Jesus Christ and Jacob during that night. And we will see that Jacob President forced the Lord Jesus Christ that he would not go away unless he blessed him. And the Lord asked him what his name was. And Jacob replied his name was Jacob. And Jesus replied to him, saying that from now onwards you are not called Jacob, you are Israel. But when the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket And Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. And we will see in the tomorrow's class how Jacob was going to face his brother Esau in the next morning. God bless you.